Hey, gorgeous! Welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast with Holly Wharton, which combines powerful strategies on how to upgrade your business mindset, along with practical business tips to grow your business. This podcast features solo shows with Holly and also interviews with inspiring women entrepreneurs from around the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. And now, here's your host, Holly Wharton.
Hello and welcome to the Business Mindset Podcast, episode 222. This is your host, Holly Wharton, and I'm here with today's special guest, Amber de la Garza. Amber is a productivity coach, trainer, speaker, writer, and podcast host with more than 15 years of experience in real estate management, training, and coaching. Welcome, Amber.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
I am so excited to talk productivity with you. So why don't we start out by having you tell us a little bit about your background and your business journey and how you got to where you are today with the productivity world?
Yeah, excellent. So I will summarize it. It is quite lengthy. So I will pick you up on the tail end of my corporate coaching career. I worked for a very, very large real estate company here in Las Vegas. And during my time there, one of my positions was coaching the top sales executives on business systems, team building, things like that. During my time coaching them and working with the sales executives, it was over and over that I would hear the same things. I'm overwhelmed. I'm out of time. I'm too busy working in my business instead of on my business. And I didn't get it because I really approached, my business or my workflow in a different way. And so it really intrigued me. And I had my son 7 years ago, and I had every intentions of going back, and I had him and my whole world changed. I realized being with him and being on maternity leave and talking with my husband, I, at that point, decided I wanted to stay home with him the first 2 years. So I went in and I resigned from my position there. I had been with the company for nearly 15 years in one aspect or another. And the COO said, you know what? Good for you for picking your family over business. Would you like to stay on as a consultant?
Wow.
And I was like, I don't know. I came in here to quit my job. Let me talk to my husband. So it was a very fortunate. I was able to remote in from home on nap times, night times, go in for meetings. My son was generally with me. And so they were really flexible in working with me. And during that time, I got the bug of the entrepreneurship and consulting and what that looked like. And so I set out to create a company from scratch, helping entrepreneurs with personal productivity, time management, and organization. I passionately feel that this is a skill set that if one chooses to improve, it will improve their business, their stress level, their life, and overall profits. And now I've been in business for 5 years, and I'm just sharing the message and teaching as many people as I can about methods to improve their personal productivity.
And what kind of mindset do you think people need in order to be able to easily improve their personal productivity?
Well, first of all, mindset is the utmost importance to productivity. One of the pillars that I coach to with personal productivity is mindset. And in fact, when I'm talking to potential clients, that's where I start and end with to find out if they're ready for this journey of improving themselves. Because how we feel every day, our mindset about our work, our relationship with time, all of that is about mindset. And I can teach you every strategy and tactic and tip and all of those little hacks, like cool things that people want. But at the end of the day, what they need is the right mindset to be able to execute on those strategies on a consistent basis.
You've really got to be open to making changes and improving the way you manage your time.
Absolutely. When I speak to anybody about the journey of improving their personal productivity, I ask them if they're ready to make changes. It's not a magic wand. It's not a secret pill. It's making the choice to specifically, strategically make behavior and habit changes in the way that you manage your time, manage yourself, manage your business.
And would you say that you've always been a really organized and productive person, or has that improved or changed over the years?
Oh, it's definitely improved over the years. I remember I was like kind of manic with organization as a child, actually. And my room would either be so messy you couldn't walk into it, or I would spend an entire weekend pulling everything from every drawer, every cabinet, and putting it on my bed and then finding the perfect place for it. So with organization, it was kind of like as different phases in my life. As I grew up, and obviously in my professional career, the truth is, Holly, people don't wake up and be like, I think that I need to improve my productivity, or I think that I need to work with a productivity specialist. Like, they don't even know that exists. But what people really say is, I want to achieve my goals. I want to get from A to Z quicker. And for me, productivity is the vehicle or the means to doing that. And so that's why I really enjoy improving my personal productivity, because at the end of the day, the payoff is a business that's growing at a speed that I'm so proud of, or profits in my business, or being present for my family. And so it's really the rewards of productivity that drive me to improve it. And I think that's very likely for a lot of other people that choose to pursue improving their personal productivity.
And what would you say some of the biggest mistakes that you see people making when it comes to personal productivity or getting things done?
Well, I would say the number one mistake, and I hate using that word, but let's just say challenge that people have is consistency. And so it's January and they have New Year's resolutions to be more productive and manage their time better, or it's September and the kids are back in school and they're going to do it differently now. And those are great intentions, but you have to have not just the strategic plan of how you're going to make these improvements, but the tactical plans of how you can make small incremental changes that over time will make a huge difference. And so it's the mistake that I would answer to you is not being consistent to see it through, to see the results that are desired in improving personal productivity.
And you see entrepreneurs making that mistake, whatever. When it comes to running their businesses, because I think a lot of times people will get excited about entrepreneurship, get into entrepreneurship, it doesn't go as planned, and they give up and go back to their day job. So that's also kind of an issue of being consistent. Do you feel like maybe if people were more efficient in their personal productivity, perhaps some of those people that give up wouldn't give up?
Yes. In fact, Holly, I'm so glad you said that. So I have this huge desire to help entrepreneurs that feel overwhelmed, because everyone that becomes an entrepreneur has some special talent that they're sharing with the world. They're sharing or educating or have a product or whatever that is. And if they do not have good personal productivity skills, it's like that fire in them gets dimmed. That passion gets stifled. And it's because they're so overwhelmed with the logistics, operations, their time management. And I think that is, to me, it hurts my heart. That's a saying I say with my son. So it hurts my heart to know that the world doesn't get to see your talents because you're so overwhelmed that it just burns you out. And so I feel that this is a skill set that if improved upon, you'll be able to kind of run the marathon of entrepreneurship and be in it for the long haul.
I love that. I think it is really sad to see people give up and go back to work when perhaps they could run the two things alongside until they get it right. But it really does, as you say, require the skill set of tapping into your productivity and being really efficient with your time.
It does. And I see a lot of newer entrepreneurs in my journey of helping people. And I feel maybe they're just not quite prepared, or they know what it takes to go from A to Z. And they're comparing other people's successes, like that it looks easy. And when it's not, they get discouraged. And I'm here that if anyone is listening, to tell you, like, entrepreneurship is the hardest thing I have ever experienced. And that to be true for many of my clients, that it's a choice of personal development. So the person I was 5 years ago when I started my business is nowhere near the person I am today, because that person 5 years ago would have never been able to succeed or make the 5-year journey if I had stayed that same person. So I'm always educating myself, not just with things that would help grow my business, but also stretching my mindset or beliefs or challenges or endurance. I'll tell you this, I've had quite a week, okay? And this is just being straight honest. I get my son ready for school today, and he's getting his shoes on, and he looks up to me and he's like, "Mommy, you look different today. Are you tired or not wearing lipstick?" And I said, "Baby, it's both." And I said, "I'll get your shoes on. We got to get to school." And so that's like the reality. Some days, you feel like you're on top of the world with owning a business. And other days you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm exhausted." And you have to have the people around you to support you. I texted my husband telling him what our son said. And he's like, "Baby, you need to get to sleep early tonight." And I said, "You're right. I'm going to bed much earlier tonight." And that's just the day to day. You never never know if you're going to have one of those crazy days in owning a business that wears you out, no matter how much planning you do.
Exactly. And that is a perfect seg into one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, because a lot of the women in my community are very heart-centered, intuitive women, and they run their businesses very intuitively, and they also try to run their schedule very intuitively. And sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. So I honestly don't think it's an either or, intuition or structure. I think you can have both, but I think you've got to figure out how to mesh those together. So how would you suggest that a very intuitive entrepreneur manage her schedule or manage her business in a way that's intuitive but also structured so that they get things done?
Oh, that's such a great question. So I believe that you do need to be present in what you're currently intuitive to, but I believe that your being intuitive can happen not just like the minute before you choose to do something, but it can happen when you're planning your week. Just tap into your feelings or your heart-centeredness about what is next for your business. Asking the question is, what's the next right thing for myself and my business? And I feel in my experience that if we leave it up to how we feel when we're making decisions of how we're going to approach our business, because our feelings tend to be, and I'll say our feelings very loosely, so I'll just speak about myself, like day to day, as a woman specifically, I feel different every day. Some days I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to get after it. And other days I may have lower energy and not be in the right mindset or headspace to get after it. But if we fall prey to the way we feel each day, our businesses are going to see those ups and downs too, both in profit and in growth. And so if you're really in tune to what works for you, then build your schedule, your routines, your goals around that. And what I mean by that is I'm always telling people that while I have strategies and tactics, everything needs to be unique and authentic to who you naturally are. And so if you hear me say, plan your day the night before, you'll always hear me say it with a caveat that says, unless that doesn't work for you. But the key is to plan your day. So if planning your day with a cup of coffee after yoga and watching the sunrise is the best time for you, and that feels right for you, and you can do it consistently, then do it. Because these strategies that I share are things that I believe will absolutely help with your productivity so long as you're consistent with it. And so we kind of have to get out of how I feel for that day. With that being said, there are some days I will give an honest truth. Yesterday, I had 7 back-to-back meetings, and at 4 o'clock, I was supposed to record my own show. And I did not have the energy level to do so. All right. I had to make a decision. Do I do what I planned, what I tactically did, or do I say, okay, you're tired, and you know what? Even if you force yourself, your audience is not going to feel that energy. And it's more important that my audience feels me present and energy and excited about what I'm doing instead of just having to do it. And so because I use time blocking, I was able to take that block of time and find another time this week prior to my deadline that I feel I'd have higher energy. So that's a way that I was true to myself, and I was clear that I wasn't going to show up my best self, and I call it renegotiating with myself. So don't do that all the time. You're choosing another time, because sometimes when we negotiate with ourselves, guess what? Nobody wins because you're negotiating with yourself. But what I negotiated was just a new time instead of saying whether I was doing it or not doing it.
And this is a perfect segue into the next thing I was going to ask you about anyway, which is time blocking. Something that I use in my schedule, and I love it specifically because it makes it so easy to plan my day, to see how much I can fit into a day, and as you just said, shift things around if you need to. So tell us what time blocking is and how you use it and how you recommend people implement it, because it's so powerful.
Oh, absolutely. If I ever feel like my productivity is dragging, it's because I fell off my time block for whatever reason, whether it was a day or an afternoon. Time blocking is the very first thing that I do with all of my clients because it's so powerful. So time blocking is when you set specific time on your calendar for specific activities. There's two types of time blocking. One is that you would have the same schedule week after week, very similar schedule rather week after week. The other type of time blocking is to look at your to-do list and the projects that you have, and then look at your calendar and then put a block of time that's dedicated towards that one task. What this does is really help bring the future into the now. So what am I doing for the next 60 minutes? What am I doing for the next 90 minutes? Whatever time block you utilize. And then you have a goal of what it is you're going to accomplish during that time. It makes sure that you're single focused. It reminds you to eliminate distractions during that amount of time. And essentially, it's setting a goal for a specific amount of time and then achieving that on your calendar.
I love that. And I find it with recurring tasks and things that I do every week or every month, I find it really useful because if I know something's going to take me a half an hour or an hour, then it's so easy to block out my time for future days and weeks and months. Whereas otherwise you're just kind of guessing, well, I have to do this thing, I have to do this other thing, how long it's going to take, I don't know. But if I see it visually in my calendar, that really, really helps me plan things and get things done.
Absolutely. So being that, say, the recording yesterday was visually on my calendar, I knew I could literally drag and drop that hour and find another open time that would be ideal for my energy level and to complete that task. So that's an example of maneuvering into time blocking. One of the other strategies I use for time blocking are theme days. So theme days are that you can say, every Tuesday I do X, Y, and Z, and every Wednesday I do maybe social media, and every Thursday I work with clients. I guess the best way to share this would be to share my theme days. So on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are my meeting days. So if I have to meet with somebody, all my coaching happens on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Friday is always been, and in 5 years, I can tell you less than one hand I've ever taken a client on a Friday. My Friday is my catch-up day because I run at Mach speed during the week, meaning I keep a really quick pace in my schedule. And so Friday is my administrative day, my strategic day, my weekly review day. I'm planning out my next week. And so it's crucial that I'm not scheduling appointments on Friday. And then Monday is my content creation day. It's working with my team, setting them out for the week. It's recording podcasts or interviews generally. I really try to keep those on Monday. That's the rule in general. And then if I have to break it, it's a choice that I'm choosing to make a different thing. So my recording, as you heard, it was yesterday, and yesterday was Wednesday. But in the United States, we had a holiday on Monday, so I didn't record on Monday. So I moved that to Wednesday, and now I'm obviously moving that to Friday. But I'm still so far ahead with my workflow that still works for me. And I'm just trying to give your listeners some real examples, because if you looked at your business, maybe you need a full day to write. Like if you're doing a book, if you want to write a book. And so theme days really help with block schedule as well, so that you're putting the blocks in there that tie to that.
And what about weekends? Are you good about not working weekends to give your brain a rest, or do you let a little bit of work creep in?
Yeah, so up until recently, I would say last 6 months, I don't work weekends at all. But I have been taking a lot of trips. And so if I need to work a Saturday because I took some trips either with the family or conferences, I have negotiated working a half a day on Saturday to make sure that I'm set up for a successful week. And for me, I use that as a strategy to make sure that me being behind or not having as many days in the week because I wasn't in town bleed into the next week. But I don't take client appointments. If I work, I'm working from at home, from my bed, just, kind of while the family's around, trying to get caught up on some maybe administrative stuff, or I'll come into my office and I have specific projects that I plan to work on. So those are the two options for a Saturday if I choose to work.
Excellent. And another thing that you talk about a lot, which I would love to discuss with my audience, is bookending your day with morning and evening routines. I think this is something that can really add a beautiful structure to people's days. And a lot of people don't consider this because maybe they haven't heard of the concept. So can you tell us a little bit about morning and evening routines, what they look like, some ideas, how you can implement this?
Yeah, thanks, Holly, for asking. So I experience a lot of people that are like, oh my gosh, I cannot be put on a block schedule. I don't want to be on a schedule. Like that seems too, I don't know, icky or like confined, or they want to be more free flowing, or they're creatives. And so the solution is to ensure that there is some structure to your day while leaving the middle of your day to less structure. Okay. So the bookending your days, what I refer to it as, is that you have 4 routines each day. And these routines are habits that are stacked upon each other. And those habits come from bit by bit, little by little, achieving goals. So I believe these habits should all be in line with that they serve you. And when I say goals, I mean not just professional goals. So that will make more sense in just a second. Mm-hmm. Let me share with you the 4 routines, Holly. So the first 2 routines are your morning routine. I believe everyone needs their own morning personal routine. Mm-hmm. How they get ready for the day, how they invest in themselves. The truth is that productivity does not start with when you get to the office. It starts by investing in yourself. Then when you get to the office or you open your laptop or you're sitting at the kitchen table, wherever work is for you, once you decide it's work time, I think you should have a routine that sets you up for success that day. Some of those could be reviewing your day, looking at your appointments briefly, reading your goals so that you're setting some intention for the day. There's a lot of small habits that you could integrate that will ensure that you're in the right mindset. So supporting a positive mindset, preparing you for the day so you're not reactive to your day, but more proactive with how you're spending your time. Mm-hmm. And then the last 2 routines, Holly, are going to be the evening routine. So I think you should have one business evening routine. And one of the biggest routines that I'm a proponent of is planning your day. And I call that the 5 daily planning pavers. Ooh. And you can definitely read about that in my blog, or I also have a podcast episode about that. But I share with you the 5 steps that it takes to plan your day for the next day. And it shouldn't take more than 15 minutes, generally 10. And that's a great evening routine for work. And then the other one is many entrepreneurs are challenged with clutter or disorganization. So I really recommend spending a few minutes clearing your desk so that when you come back the next morning, you're totally focused, right? And you're not adding to the visual clutter and being overwhelmed.
And may I ask you a question? How often do you do like a deep declutter of your office? Or do you not need to because you're doing it every day?
Me personally, I don't have a need for a deep clean. I'm kind of a minimalist, I guess. Like there's really not much paper on my desk except for my steno pad. I hate stacks of paper, so I use magazine folder. What are those called?
The vertical ones.
Yeah, the vertical ones. And so each one has like a different little category. So it's not stacks of paper, but rather I can just stick it in there and they're kind of pretty. I don't really have to declutter. Now, if we talk about my closet, we definitely need to declutter my closet. Yeah, so that's a good question. And then the next routine after your business routine would be an evening routine for yourself. And just winding yourself down, whatever that looks like that you're pouring into yourself. And so for the personal routines, I love to see things like reading or listening to some sort of personal development, getting some exercise in there, meditating or quiet time, journaling. There's a lot of great resources, and these are not just my ideas, but there's a great book called The Miracle Morning. Yep. I cannot wait. I'm in episode 17 of my podcast, so I'm going to wait a little longer, and I'm just going to keep putting it out there with intentions. If anyone's listening, like I want Hal on my podcast. I think that he's such a phenomenal. It's so simple, but it doesn't mean that it's easy, right? And so it takes the commitment of building out your own morning routine and then sticking to it. So those are some of my tips for the routines, and I call it bookending your day for success, because really, if your entire day goes awry and you don't stick to any of your schedule, you still got to invest in yourself, and you got to invest in your business in the morning. And sometimes the routines also is more about what you're not doing. Yep. So when you get to your office, is the first thing you do check email? Well, maybe you're just going to work on doing something differently than checking your email that's more proactive towards your goals.
I love that. Now, how long do you think it usually takes the average person to implement these morning and evening routines and really make them a part of their day rather than just kind of falling off the bandwagon after the first week?
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't personally have statistics, right? So I feel like everyone's different. I think that it's consistency and it's not crash dieting. So when I say routines, if you have no routines right now, like don't go make 4 of them today. Just start with your like morning personal routine and keep it simple. And then once you build momentum, then build build upon that. Like if you have no morning routine, like don't start out the gate with a 2-hour morning routine, right? So those are some tips on making it stick and being more consistent, and then you build upon those wins. I actually had a very good friend of mine. Her name is Linda Fogg Phillips, and she's with Tiny Habits, and she had an episode on my podcast, and she shares with us that if you really, really focus on the small habits, that they can take hold within 3 days. And so those really tiny habits are not an entire routine. It's that her example is after I brush my teeth, I will floss 1 tooth, meaning it's path of least resistance. And then once you floss one, obviously you're going to continue and floss others. And so if you want to learn more about that, you can find the episode for sure. But so for her, it's really taking it to the most simplest and building and building. But you only get to build if you're consistent with it. So it all falls back to consistency.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important. So, Amber, how can our listeners learn more about you and work with you? What are the different ways that you work with people?
Yeah, so I work with entrepreneurs in almost all industries, one-on-one productivity coaching. I'm also getting ready to start a mastermind and a group coaching. So the mastermind and group coaching, I am taking wait lists for that, or interest list rather. No commitment, but if you're interested. But right now, I mostly train, speak, and do one-on-one coaching. And you can find out all about that at theproductivityspecialist.com. Just click on the link, work with me. And if you're not quite yet ready to work with me and you want just to keep hearing some more about personal productivity for entrepreneurs, you can listen to my podcast at that would be productivitystraighttalk.com. Again, that's productivitystraighttalk.com, or search it in anywhere you can find podcasts.
Excellent. And where else can people find you online? What are your favorite social networks?
My favorite social network is Facebook and Instagram. So Facebook, I can go to my page, The Productivity Specialist, or Instagram, it's Amber_de la Garza. And those two are where I visit every single day.
Excellent. It has been so much fun talking to you about productivity. I love your tips. They're super practical.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Holly. And I hope this has helped your listeners and brought so much value to them. And I'm going to leave your listeners with the same thing I leave my listeners with. No change, no change. If you're not going to take a change on what you learned today, then you've wasted your time. And that's not what I want. So if you just picked up one nugget or something that would be a benefit to you, I urge you to take action on that and let that build, and you will see the results in your life and business.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Holly.
Thanks. And thank you for listening. And remember to visit hollywharton.com/222 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Business Mindset Podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed, at hollywharton.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to head over to iTunes and leave a quick review of this podcast. It just takes a minute. Thank you.